Florida State's going to be a little bit late to the party, but the transfer portal is open and they will get there very soon. The spring game, of course, forthcoming on Saturday in Tallahassee. We talk FSU football with all of you every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We appreciate George Georgitis, the Renegade Report, being here as always. George, we appreciate you being here. No, you don't feel the best right now, but thanks for being here for us.
Absolutely, man. I was just telling you, like I woke up like a baby with a bad tummy or something. Woke up cranky from a nap, but we're gonna be all right. We're gonna make it. It's a heck of a week. Super busy, man, with the transfer portal opening. Spring game, or it's not actually a game. Florida State does things a little different. Mike Norvell. It's the Garnet and Gold Showcase. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to be anything like you saw with Ole Miss, where they're out there playing flag football, but it's structured more like an actual practice. It is, one of the 15 practices you get. So there's a lot of, putting them in situations and structured things as opposed to just turning them loose and having a scrimmage. But there at the very end, most of the points that are scored and the excitement happens, and it is kind of like a fourth quarter they play. They have guest judges, guest coaches that come in. I believe P Dub is one of them, Peter Wark, and then so that'll be a lot of fun seeing him kind of turn loose. Kind of a bit of bad news that we got at Mike Norvell's presser yesterday at 6 o'clock Central Time. About the time we went live, is that Luke Croman Hawk and Brock Glenn are both shut down for the rest of spring. Oh, you said, oh no, the rest of spring. Well, that's just we got one more practice in the spring game and maybe one walkthrough after that. So not much to it. They're just going to put them on the shelf. Mike Norvell said it's nothing serious, nothing to worry about. Just one of those things where they have some nagging injuries, and they're not going to risk it. They're going to shut them down and get them back in their summer programming and get them ready programming the summer program and get them ready for the fall camp. So that's where we're at. That's the kind of headlines that I can think of off the top of my head.
Hey, George, for you personally, is this going to be a first spring showcase or have you gone before?
Oh no, man. As far as the team, I've been to plenty of spring games, but this is going to be my third spring showcase as far as Mike Norvell. In the second running time, hanging out with the Den Media Group, Spear Addicts, Dope Talk crew there at Lot 5. Last year was an absolute ton of fun. So I imagine this year it's going to be ratcheted up to a complete other level. Even though it's not a game, even though it's a showcase and things like that, it's one of the most fun experiences I've had. It's definitely the most fun spring games I've ever been to with Mike Norvell there. With the battles in and the access you get to players and all the fun things they were able to do. Coaches riding around on golf carts, top recruits and family members and things. It's really cool. And if you got cool friends like Chris and James and CJ, you get to go to a tailgate and meet Peter Warwick and Snoop Minnis and all the other greats and stuff like that. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. I can recommend it to anybody out there. And get up there with Chris or James or myself and find one of those links and get your tickets.
You were going to make me think that I made a bad decision by not going to the spring showcase here, is what you're going to make me do, because that's what I was contemplating for a few weeks. But too many teams on the field on Saturday. I got to try to watch everybody at the same time. So we've got Michigan and USC and some other ones that are worth giving a look. So I decided not to, but we'll have to make it sometime in August is my plan, to get out there sometime in August when media is able to get on the field and watch part of practice. So we'll have to make that happen. All right. The one guy that entered the transfer portal here on either day one or day two that somewhat surprised me, maybe it shouldn't, because I thought he was going to have a prominent role this year, and that's Greedy Vance. So were you not necessarily surprised, but it doesn't appear to be a playing time issue, or is it?
Yeah, look, Greedy Vance, he came in, in that year we traded basically him for Jarvis Brownlee in that 2022 transfer portal class. He has been an absolute dog in his time as Tallahassee. I've absolutely loved everything he's done for us. It's not that he didn't get ample playing time here as a Florida State Seminole. Um, maybe last year he didn't get quite as many snaps as he would have liked, but he was really hoping to advance that role. He was hoping to lock that thing down and be able to go get 400 or 500 snaps this year. But in come Earl Little Jr. You've got a guy like Edwin Joseph who's getting better and better. You got a guy like Ricky Knight that's showing up after this summer who locked down Jeremiah Smith, and Josiah is a trader in his last game as a high school guy in the slot. So a lot of talent in that position. You got a guy in Kevin Knowles Jr. who wasn't a part of that rotation. He switched to safety last year because that's where we needed him. It didn't work out. Wasn't the greatest year for Kevin at safety, but he provided the depth we needed. Well, he's back. So he's back in that slot cornerback rotation, which, I've already named 3 or 4 guys that could possibly wind up winning that spot. So just really, really crowded. It's his final year of eligibility, redshirt senior year. So it is snaps. It is playing time. He wants to go somewhere. I'm not, and obviously I haven't spoken to him. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the idea is to go somewhere where you can get that 500-600 snaps and ball out and really get a shot to get drafted in that maybe 3rd or 4th round area for him. It's going to be tough at Florida State this year for the snaps.
George, I'm going to ask you about somebody who Florida State fans at this point don't necessarily care about, but I'm still just curious your thoughts because he was a huge recruit. And so Sam McCall, I believe, came in the same year as Travis Hunter. I believe that was the same class. And then once Travis Hunter made the decision that he did on National Signing Day and didn't actually sign with the Noles, I think Sam McCall was practically the top recruit in the class. And then he goes to Texas A&M. He doesn't necessarily do much there. And I didn't scout him. So I'm not speaking from firsthand knowledge, but based on all my Florida State contacts, some of which you know very well, probably all of them, they just spoke very highly of Sam McCall, and not just Florida State people, nationally, that this guy was going to be a force in the secondary.
Yeah, man, a guy coming out of high school that had all the talent in the world. Borderline 5-star defensive back. You lose out on a Travis Hunter, but you get him in. You get an Azaria Thomas. He's somebody that coming out of high school was in the same line of I thought he could have been an Azaria Thomas. Come in, learn for a couple years and have a chance to be that legitimate first-round type DB. Just be an absolute stud like you spoke to. But it comes down to the mentality. People get all upset. They were pretty upset when he transferred because at the time, if I'm not mistaken, he's either the number 1 or number 2 rated recruit as far as star rating and average within that class. So yeah, at the time it stunk, but furthermore, the reports you got back following his departure, and when you kind of find out, everything that went down, it's not for everybody at Florida State. People get aggravated the way Mike Norvell recruits. He just, we don't necessarily go after every top guy. Some of the guys we take are kind of diamonds in the rough. You offer a Luke Cromenhawk when he's, barely rated. You offer a Tremel Johnson and get him committed when people aren't looking at him like the top guy in his class. He's just a barely rated recruit. But then down the road, you see it. Unfortunately, those 21, 22 recruiting classes, due to COVID, due to a lot of reasons, you didn't get as much tape of a Sam McCall playing on the field as you would have in year past. And there was a lot of misses. I'm not saying he doesn't necessarily have the physical talent, but it became pretty apparent pretty quickly once he got on campus that it wasn't a fit for Florida State. And now you see it happening at Texas A&M. He kind of gets away. Jimbo's been known to let that entitlement slide by. It was one of the things, points of contention between him and the administration and fans towards the end of his career. Just not putting the hammer down, just letting things grow and metastasize within the locker room. You have guys like signing contracts saying you'll give good effort at practice and things like that.
Right.
So it's no surprise to me that you get a coach come in from Duke who's just an absolute beast and turning things around, and Sam McCall is one of the first guys out of the door. So it makes perfect sense for me. Not to talk any crap about the kid. I hope he gets somewhere and it works out. But at some point in time, you got to settle in and go to work and truly climb. And Florida State, Mike Norvell, they've done an amazing job of getting guys in that do that. But kind of across the board, that 22 class, Chris has talked about it a lot. It was pretty rough.
I'm not going to say it's a similar situation, but in some ways there are the same traits in terms of possibly what's going on with Cormani McClain, who is a big Miami commit. #1 rated cornerback in the nation. He flips to Colorado. Dion challenged him. Dion himself was challenged by reporters on why he wasn't playing the #1 cornerback in the country. About 7, 8, 9 weeks into the season, basically said he's not prepared to play. He's not studying film. He's not early to meetings. He's not getting to all the meetings. All those things aren't happening with Cormani McClain. Lo and behold, we see Cormani McClain's back in the transfer portal. And say what you will about Deion Sanders, I got to think that if you're a cornerback, especially, that would be the guy to learn from. So you would want to be in Boulder, Colorado right now. But Cormani McClain obviously got his feelings hurt and he's off to somewhere else. But he's got plenty of talent, so he's going to have his choices. There's no question about that. But this transfer portal, what is bothering me right now about the transfer portal, George, and I went on a rant on the national channel. If anybody wants to check out my rant, is I am fully on board and a fully defender of freedom of choice, freedom of opportunity, freedom of movement. We're Americans. Make your decision. However, these guys are signing agreement. There are papers that have to be processed to complete a transfer. There are papers that have to be processed and administrative things to get a scholarship and all those things. And when these players aren't even sticking around for a season, so the opportunity after they've made this decision to make it through spring practice, go through a season, and then make another decision to go somewhere, fine. I am okay with that. But we are now seeing tons of guys that we didn't see before. We didn't see this before, transferred in December after last season. And I see the articles, and it's almost amusing because there were 3 of them at Louisville. Louisville running back, so-and-so. Well, he was never a Louisville running back.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Louisville running back. He's a free agent is what he is. And all he did, and see, this is where I will stick up for the schools to a certain extent, is that it's not like they proved to be a big zero. It would be one thing if they were a big zero at that school. They're actually taking away from the school. They took away from the coaching staff's time to recruit them, to talk to them, to bring them on campus, to give them a visit or two, to wine and dine them. I'm sure in those 2 or 3 months, they have certainly worn their gear, eaten their food, worked out at their facilities. And if they've practiced for spring practice, they have taken reps from somebody else who could have gotten the reps that's actually going to be playing on the team in 2024. That's the issue that I have.
Look, hey, and I'm glad you brought it up, and it's true. The first thing I want to point out is your guys like Sam McCall. There's a lot of guys that are just portal. They've hit it 3 portals in a row going somewhere. And I'll just to point out, like, it's a pretty small group of people, and it's these same guys. So if the portal wasn't there, they'd have been washed out down to JUCO or whatever the case may be. They're able to keep their value going a little more. But I think what you're talking about is just, it's more rare than people realize. And yes, Louisville is a great example. So on the surface, it looks like these kids just screwed, you screwed them. But, you don't hear about these things happen with the battle's end. You don't hear about them happening at Florida State and some of these people that have their program together. So the narrative out there, and a lot of times what you see happening with these people, like a Louisville, who all of a sudden is batting over their head, and they're signing one of the top transfer portals in the class, and it looks like they're going to make themselves a contender. Well, from the outside looking in, and the people I've talked to, a lot of promises are made in these NIL deals. Very similar to that Texas A&M class that Jimbo Fisher signed. Like, how'd they do it? How'd they promise all these things? And they sell these kids on, oh, well, you're going to make this, you're going to be that. And then they hide in the fine print. Oh, well, that's only if you do this, X, X, and X. And it has been misrepresented by somebody along the way. So we'll see if any stories come out on that. But that Louisville situation in particular, a lot is made of guys leaving for money and things like that. But I continually contend that it's just about playing time and spot on the roster. Because if you're 3rd string running back, yeah, you're upset about money, but it's just because you're making 3rd string money. You want 1st string money. You want to go somewhere where you can start. So yeah, there's got to be something done. Mark, I hate the infinite transfer rule. in my opinion, that's just the NCAA throwing their hands up and saying, okay, let mayhem ensue, and then you'll come crying back to us to come fix it later. Because they gave us the one time, they never stood on that at all. A little bit of friction, oh, well, multi-time, as much as you want. So now we've got this where you can, come in December and leave before spring camp even starts or right after spring camp. It's a bit messed up, but I think these short-term guys leaving like that for the majority of the time, and it could be half-half, the kids and the schools, but a lot of times these schools, they used to be able to rope kids in and sell a dream, and then, you're stuck. What are you going to do, kid? But now, if all of a sudden those dollars don't show up to Penny Boone, a guy who's one of the top running backs in the country, he's going to get out there and go somewhere he can get that money he was promised.
Big game. James Coleman's here. James, appreciate you taking the time. Of course, as always, Den Media Group, everybody get on over there. Den Media Group will have the links to the Renegade Report and Den Media Group and Chris with Spear Addicts. They'll be in the chat for you guys to lock in on Florida State football talk every day. James, what do you think? I don't know if you caught some of this conversation or my rant on what I don't like currently about what's going on with the transfer portal.
I don't like it either, but I think the problem is the way it's reported. And again, one of the benefits of being, my age now, I'm not old, but my friends are starting to become the guys who quote unquote be in power now or whatever. As the old guard shifts out. So I know a ton of college coaches, and I have to always remind people, I find out about the transfer portal from college coaches. College coaches saying, we're going to put kids into the transfer portal to get our scholarships back now that we know that there's something there. And it's an effective tool, and it's a tool that's been used by everybody. And I would argue with people more so they're all grown, but more so the older adults who have a little bit more power than the kids. I would argue, for every one person that uses this for NIL, and there are guys who do use this for NIL, that's the extreme minority. I would say there's 100 kids who are being placed there. And a lot of people say, I saw one person say, hey, it's like quitting a job with no contingency plan. I said, no, it's not like quitting a job. It's like getting fired from a job with no contingency plan. I'd argue too, the guys who kind of go in the portal, they already know where they're going. Like, they have a really good idea. Like, because that's the other part is you hear coaches complaining about it, but they're tampering. They're talking to people and they're bringing people in. And one of the things that I think I'm going to just start saying, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. If they really wanted to change this, forget the unlimited transfer rule. Just reinstitute APR. What happens is, if I hit the transfer portal and I don't get picked up, Florida State's still responsible for me graduating. If I get picked up, now that school that I left for is responsible for my graduate. I count on their APR. I guarantee you Deion Sanders wouldn't have did a whole, think about Deion. And I'm not knocking him. That's his strategy for what he did. Deion literally brought in with like 55, 60 players last year between high school and transfers. That means he had to cut 55 to 60 players to be able to make room. That's how this works, if we're being honest. But, for every Kamani McLean, which he's a little bit more disgruntled, he says they put him in the portal. He says the choice wasn't his. And there's, there's other guys. But I would even argue, like you just brought up a name. I won't say I happen to know that situation a little bit more because I was asking questions and I know I can get direct answers. Here's a kid where the school wanted him. The school told him he'd be number one. He's taking 2 to 3 reps, and that's him coming out and saying it on his own. But also, the school took a guy that they knew was going to need 24 credits to be eligible for the fall. Like, come on, man. Like, is that the kid's fault, or is that your fault, Louisville, for taking a guy that you know is going to have a damn near impossible task? Is it like that means he's going to have to take a full schedule basically a full schedule in the spring and the summer to just be eligible to play football in the fall? That ain't happening in college. Like, I'm sorry, it's a lot. It's way tougher. Did Greedy Vance get greedy? No. We're 10 scholarships over at Florida State. Like, what do you think gonna happen? How do we get the 10 scholarships? We don't go and point and say, hey, guys who's not on this train, raise your hand. Like they don't want to be here. No, we go and say, hey, what doesn't belong here? Greedy, we really, really like you. We need your scholarship. You're 5'10". Everybody else that we have in this room is 6'1". Like you kind of like you can start reading between the lines on some of those things. And you know, then you got Braden Fisk. I feel bad for who I feel bad for is the G5s that take the chances on these guys. And then like somebody may decide to leave to go, do what Braden Fisk did but that's to better his career. But to quote one of my friends, Billy Roll, who's a coach at FAMU, he says, we can't blame these kids for hitting the transfer portal when coaches is in the transfer portal in the hallways all the time, whispering to the next to try to get the next job. Like friend of mine, Devin Reshpress was at Colorado, brought in 10 transfers to FAMU. All the D1 transfers that came into FAMU, he was responsible for them coming in, talking to them. He leaves, and then the head coach, Willie Simmons, leaves. Who's at fault? Like, we praise Willie Simmons for going to make $500,000 to be coach at Duke when he told these young men he was going to see him graduate at FAMU. Devin went to go make 6 figures out in Colorado. Those guys came for them. So it's kind of like I get what people are saying, but we could just I'm for it. Make it even. If a coach leaves, a coach, I don't know, let's say is responsible for some kind of penalty or something like that, something to slow it down. That messes up their career progression, but it also makes them. I have to have a little bit of when we scream loyalty. You got to have a little bit of loyalty. What is it? One of my favorite lines from Remember the Titans was when the guy looked at Bertier and said, what about you and your boys? Attitude, if you're a leader, look at what your guys are doing. Attitude reflects leadership. You're either coaching it or allowing it, as my coach used to say. And he used to also say the kids have not changed. It's been like this forever. The only people who have changed are the adults. So if the kids are running wild, it's because we let the adults run wild. Adults need to go be adults, and I promise you the system will be a little bit better. But I agree with you. It's not good for the game, though.
Yeah, and I want anyone to be very understanding of where I'm coming from on this. And I'll liken it to me preaching all the time that Notre Dame should be in a conference. That's not directed at Notre Dame. That's directed at the structure of college football, forcing Notre Dame to be in a conference. That's not directed at Notre Dame. They're doing what Notre Dame wants to do. That's what they should be doing.
I agree. Again, it's NCAA when they said, okay, fine, pay players. Do whatever you want to do. I'm moving my hands. They restricted she's not restricted. They let go of the restrictions and the oversight, and then now people complain that like even with the NIL is like with 3 clear rules: clear ask, clear give, cannot entice or induce, and they're and you can't talk to a kid until you get on until they're not on campus, until they're part of yours. All they got to do, they don't need to be in more rules. If they would just enforce those consistently out the gate, that's all the oversight you need. Instead, they put their head in the sand, they pouted, and that's why they're going to become obsolete, because they didn't do any of this stuff. And to be honest with you, the coaches could all band together and just state that we're not going to deal with this. But the coaches are complicit because they know that what's the fastest way for me to get good right now? Like coaches are they're not paying again. I ain't one of those naive guys. I've seen it. I always joke with people, lie to your pastor. You ain't got to lie to me. Mike ain't no different. Like we're dipping in the portal. Mike ain't getting paid $10 million to see 85 kids graduate every year. Like Mike's getting paid $10 million to win football games. And that's the case.
James, you brought something up about the decisions, the percentage that is the player's decision versus the coach pushing them out. Especially once we get to a point where these players are being officially paid, not through a collective in terms of NIL, but if there's a salary involved, that then maybe the pay structure becomes public record. Therefore, it should all be public record. And this is all done for the fans. Ultimately, it's a entertainment vehicle for the fans. So shouldn't the fans know this player left because they wanted to leave. Something is signed to indicate that this is a free agency deal and the player opted to want to go to another location to play versus they were forced out.
Is the problem is how it's reported. I agree with you. I just tell people like some of it's common sense, some of it's not. Right now, all you can really do is because all the power is still when it comes to scholarships is in the hands of the coaches. Now, the collective deal is if they sign a collective deal, technically, just like that player's on the hook, that collective is on the hook. So, in theory, just using Greedy Vance as an example, Greedy Vance has a contract with Battles in. If let's say Greedy Vance decides that he doesn't want to go, I'm done. I'm just they put me in the transfer portal. I just don't want to go play nowhere else. They gotta pay him that bread if he does what he's asked to do. Now, if he moves on, that's it. But like the schools, you have to assume the best, even though that's not always going to get the clicks. But like just looking at schools tell you without telling you, Miami's 10 scholarships over, Louisville's 9 scholarships over, Florida State's about 9 scholarships over at this point. Like there ain't nobody leaving. Like people gotta leave. Now, Colorado is 10 scholarships under. Just using because I just saw that. Like, so anybody who's leaving now is kind of up in the air. You may be like they don't like Dion. They may be doing it for the money, but it's different things like that. But here's why I think that the power two need to do the right thing. Well, after we join, let us join first, and then take the TV deals and it doesn't have to be verbatim NFLPA. It doesn't have to be a 51-49. It could be 70-30. Even 30% of that money is going to be more. Go ahead and make them employees, but it's fair to both sides because you can't just fire me without if we're collectively bargained. You can't just get rid of me without paying me some kind of penance. And everybody has a level playing field. Right now, there is no level playing field. All these collectives are doing is just raising this. I'm gonna be real. This is real. Like they're all doing this. All they're doing is just raising as much money and then finding things for the kids to do, and then coming up with the idea that you're worth $300,000 and I need you to do 20 events, and we're gonna pay you this much money. You just have to do these 20. I'm just throwing a number of events out. Like it's not like very few are as organized. When you see like I got a Gatorade deal, a marketing agency crafted that deal more than likely. Like what not Brittany, what's the girl? Well, Caitlin Clark has. Sorry, Mark. Don't want to talk about basketball too much. That's a marketing agent crafted those things. That's more than a collective. A lot of these guys just know 1st and the 15th they're gonna get a check. They better go read to some specially able kids on this Thursday afternoon after practice, or go sing hymns at an old folks home. Like and you know what? They don't want to do that either. That takes away from what they should be doing for boosters, because that's really what it comes down to. But if they just went on ahead and got the bread the right way, now you can go structure. Everybody knows that they get everybody's getting paid $60,000 or whatever the number may be. Now you don't have to worry about that extra stuff. So, outside of that, I'm with you though. Like I do. There needs to be some kind of checks and balances system. Like to where it doesn't seem like a guy can just sign a contract and then just get out of it. But as I have to remind people, the way that the NCAA did it, there is no contract between the individual that's outside of the scholarship. There's no contractual obligation between the individual and the school. Their obligation is between the collective, and the collective cannot sign you to if you're playing games. So like when people are like, well, can it should go all the way through the bowl games, unless there is a marketing agreement that states that you have to play, but that's called pay for play. That's legitimately pay for play, which is one of the few rules that they don't have. So if you want to be angry at somebody, don't be angry at the kid. Don't be angry at the school. Be angry at the NCAA for throwing a temper tantrum. And that temper tantrum is about to make them lose everything.
We actually did have fun the other night talking about Caitlin Clark's SNL appearance. So I'm loosening up a little bit. She is for better or worse. And I was comparing the college basketball ranking ratings, the TV ratings on the women's side to the World Series, which as a longtime baseball fan, not that I'm that actively involved or watch the game anymore, but I believe it to be the most beautiful sport that I love. It's just amazing. You would have never been able to convince me at 25 years old that the TV ratings would look like they do for the World Series versus a women's college basketball game. Anyway, I refreshed the page on the transfer portal for 247 Sports, and boom, 3 Virginia Tech players right in a row. It looks like some position coaches have had some conversations here. So
that's the other thing too. Like, so I'm trying to think. All right, Arkansas has Coach Woodson, who is that's what I'm thinking, making sure I say his name right. He was over at Florida State. He knows the guys in that room because he was there before Patrick Surtain. Say he goes over there and he's like, "Oh man, you're not Greedy. You're not playing over there, man. I really liked you over there, Greedy. Like, come on over here, man. You know, because these coaches still stay in contact with them for good or bad. Like even Coach Yak. Coach Yak still talks to a kid who's doesn't know what the hell he wants. I think he just wants to wear orange and green. Like, he's going whatever school wears orange and green. He's gonna be there. Rodney Williams, and but Coach Yak still, our running back coach at Florida State, still talks to him. So sometimes it's a mentorship thing. Sometimes it's a thing where they're like, "Hey, I know what you can do. I'm here. I don't like some of these kids. They don't do what I want them to do. They don't speak the same language. Let me get you over here and get you coached up and playing the right way." So these things happen. I get more phone calls than I would actually that honestly, because I truly don't care. But people call me and say, "Hey, can you put me in contact with such and such? Because I know you know such and such." And I'm like, "All right, man. If this is like, I'm about to tell people next year, if y'all gonna try to stress me out and make me do stuff, make me actually work, it better be a cash app or a large or a donation to my nonprofit before I pick up this phone and call somebody for you." But that's kind of just like somebody from Virginia Tech. No, like it's a lot of these guys are being coerced into the transfer portal, by the way. And again, I'm not going to say names, but just there's a lot of names that have a really that are really, but it's been like that since well before when I was playing. Like my freshman year, I played. They broke my red shirt. It wasn't like how it is now. Back then, it was after game 4. If you played any game after game 4, your red shirt is broken. So I didn't have a situation where now it's just 4 games and they get to play the bowl game. So like you could get more reps. But like, I told my high school coach, like, "Hey man, do you think anybody has any interest in me? Like, I'm not playing. I kind of want to go. This guy is being mean to me." And I had a teammate, Thomas Clayton. He took 5 official visits after he transferred out in that spring and acted like a freshman all over again. Ended up going to Kansas State. But obviously you had to sit out a year back then. So it's just like I said, it's some things that they could do to tidy this thing up. But I also think, and why I appreciate your platform, Mark, one of the things that I think you do an incredible job of, especially me and you, even on Twitter. Like I know there's some things that I don't necessarily agree with that you state. And I know there's some things that I say that you don't necessarily state, even though sometimes I'm just stirring the pot on social media because I don't care what people think. I just care that they think. It's you at least hear things out and you're just not playing to they're the villain. And then because if we go out here and just say these kids is out of control, we know for a fact that we can get this thing probably 1,000 likes or something. We just go out and cat like everybody else. But if you're encouraging people to really start to look at this with an open mind and have true dialogue, it makes it better on all sides. It's the same thing with recruiting. Like, I got a kid right now that, like I told him, he's gonna get roughed up a little bit if he does what he does. Because I understand the way Big 3 Twitter works. He's a 17-year-old and his family doesn't understand this game. but he's taking a visit to a rival, unofficial, nothing even really big deal, just hearing what people have to say. I'm like, they're 17. He wants to, like, one of the fun things that I got to experience was 5 official visits. Like, these kids don't even get a chance to see the world without everybody saying, like, why aren't you committed? Why don't you like us? Oh, you ain't that good anyway. Oh, you're this. And then it's like, you know, that kid, now I have to go explain to this kid that it's going to be people who talk to you like that all the time. And like, again, that even with the, like, did you see, I put up a short, because I talked about it on my show, like Kermani McClain left Colorado. They had 300 grown men in a space telling him he's making the biggest mistake of his life. That, like, I got friends who didn't make it to 20. Like, I thought Kermani was leaving football to become a rapper or like sell drugs or something. I like, not that he's leaving to go to another college. Like, I've never heard anybody say you're ruining your life by leaving Colorado. Like, that was like, I'm befuddled, like, just by what these guys, like, again, but forget that. It's a 20-year-old who's still trying to figure things out, being berated by a group of probably 30-plus-year-old men with Colorado Abbeys. They're not even showing their real faces and saying this kid sucks. F you. I want to fight. Meet me outside. I'm like, yo, father your sons. Like, what are your kids? Where's your wife wants to cuddle, man. It's 10 o'clock at night, man. She doesn't want to. She's tired of hearing you raise your voice at your imaginary friends. But that's where we're at. So.
Well put. Well put. Well, I want to hit George first on the spring weekend, but of course we got to get to Chris. We appreciate Chris being here from Spear Radix. Chris, do you think, and anytime I ask you guys an introductory question and you guys want to go off on something else, feel free. But just to get things started, do you think that the delay that Florida State has, you know, considering how successful Mike Norvell has been in the transfer portal, the delay of about a week for FSU getting into the portal is going to hurt this time around?
No, not at all, because the things that are being done, and that's I don't want to go too deep into that, but there's a reason why specific players ain't in the portal yet. I guarantee you the ones that Mike Norvell ends up with is the majority of didn't show up until after this week. So it's like, you can't tell me this stuff's not planned at that point. Like, we can't get you the first week you're in the portal, but, you know, on the 22nd we can start doing this. So no, I don't think it hurts Mike at all. I don't think it hurts the staff. I think it's just one of those things that it motivates you more. Okay, we're a week behind because Atkins gave a kid a ride on a golf cart. All right, whatever. We'll take the penalty. Like Mike, it's his whole, you know, MO. How are we going to respond to it? So I think Mike and his staff responds to the delay in the transfer portal the way they pretty much do everything. They're just going to respond in the best possible way, and usually he comes out looking like, I don't know, knight in shining armor. So I plan that Mike knows what he's doing. It's not like this is brand new to them, where the news pops off and everybody's like, well, what's Florida State going to do? It's like, it's new information to college football, but it's not new information to people that keep up with it. It's not new information to Mike Norvell or the staff. They knew about it last year, so they knew this was going to happen. So did we think that they weren't planning on this way ahead of time, whom they wanted to talk to, and et cetera? I think that's all. It's all great. Makes it look like it's actually hurting somebody. The NCAA, you know, they put their penalty out there, and Florida State's going to abide by it, and all those great things. But what is it really doing? Nothing. So no, I think we're good.
And to James' point, it appears as though, based on the accomplishments of these players that have gone in the portal, probably 5 to 6 of them so far, it's easy to see, okay, they can go anywhere. They can play for pretty much whoever they want. They're at that level. Cormani McClain, the Louisville running back, Penei Boone. There's an SMU All-America or All-Conference tackle. There's about 5 or 6 guys. I'm looking at a TCU defensive tackle who was all Big 12. You know, those guys are obviously making a move on their own and looking for a different opportunity, but everybody else could be getting the old push out the door. George, speaking of Saturday, back on Saturday here, before we get the speech that I've always loved to hear from James about this being the equivalent of the sixth grade graduation, anything that we can take out of Saturday's festivities besides you guys having a good time?
Yeah, look, you're not going to find out everything you want to know about the team, but there are a ton of things you can glean. Again, like I said, it's not an actual game. It's more of a glorified practice, and we got access to it the way they run it. The things that I think you can really learn is kind of how some of these true freshmen that early enrolled, how far along they have. We're going to get to see DJU play, so we're going to get to see some of that timing and accuracy and where he's at within picking up that offense. There's going to be a ton of things to take. It's not you're not going to damn anybody's career or say they're going to be an All-American guaranteed out of this game, but there's plenty to look forward to. It really stinks, like I mentioned earlier, that Luke and Brock aren't going to be there. That was something that we were really going to be able to learn, where they were in their development. But there's a ton. I'm more interested to hear what the guys have to say on this. So I really appreciate it and curious what they have.
James, give it to us.
I mean, you said it perfectly, man. I mean, you'll see some it'll be situational things. Really, the number one key is to try to get out of this thing without any injuries. And where jobs are won in the spring are during the scrimmages. And it's why I don't while it's some jokes, there are things that you will be able to see. You can't judge effort. You can judge if guys are in the proper places. You can judge if somebody's disruptive. Those are the things, even when I looked at the Miami spring game and the Florida spring game, I was judging not the play calling, but even your vanilla stuff is still should look like you're a D1 program. You got guys that aren't in that place. So are there DBs and the wide receivers, competing in the few routes that they're running? Those are the things that I want to see. And also energy. For Florida State, it's not a true game. Are the guys smiling? Are they running around? Are they bouncing around? I'll be on the sideline probably for the first part of it. Then I'm gonna go get me some food in the Champions Club more than likely. So again, that's why I like going to see practice. I'll be at the Thursday practice. Then I'll also be at the Friday practice while we do some alumni things that they want us to do. So I just, does DJU have a target? Do we see a big bomb? Can we see the arm? Can you see it? Does the arm look live? Is there more push on the offensive line? That's kind of really what it all comes down to. Outside of that, it'll just be a fun little outing for the guys to move around and get after it.
For those people watching, whether it's live or watch the record, how can they take advantage of what you guys have available in lot number 5, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir. Lot 5 under the big oak tree. We'll have the 6th one. This is Mike's year 5. Yep. Yeah, so this is the 6th one we've done in 7 years because obviously we didn't do one for COVID. We'll be out there. You can still get tickets. You can purchase it with cash or Cash App day of. It's $40. The money goes toward MFTK Foundation, and I'll be having my book bag drive up here coming soon. So you'll be able to see those different things and all the stuff that we do in the community. But it's really just to have people have a good time. I'm really going to make this campaign, especially during this year and even previous years. One of the coolest things about, if I would have known about tailgates before I played football, I probably would have never played football. Because eating good food, fellowship, it feels like, I don't know how much everybody else does family reunions, but my family did family reunions. And you go out, fellowship over bread, you meet cousins that you haven't seen in a year or 2 years. And that's kind of like what football season is, especially when they bring their kids. You can kind of start seeing the kids grow a little bit and you become cool with the kids. So that's kind of the big thing that I want the fans to do. Not just come to my tailgate, come to anybody's tailgate. If you can't get in the game, make the city so live that recruits want to be a part of it, or these guys remember it. I saw me and my son was watching Swamp Donkeys or whatever the University of Florida thing was with Urban Meyer. And one of the things that my son was listening to and those guys kept bringing up was not just the camaraderie, but how the game day atmosphere looked when they were winning. And I think I can remember that, and I can relate to that as it was I was at Florida State. So like that game day atmosphere makes people want to come to your school and participate there. So I think as a fan base, that's one thing we can do.
Folks, we get together every Wednesday here at the Voice of College Football with these three. We got Big Game James Coleman, Den Media Group. You see it on the banner right there. And we've got Chris Frazier, Spear Addicts. Of course, it's every Sunday at 4.
Monday and Thursday.
Monday and Thursday. Yeah, Monday and Thursday at 8.
Yep.
Monday and Thursday at 8 with Chris on Spear Addicts. George with the Renegade Report. What's going on at the Renegade Report, George?
Man, we have been busy. We had a couple big shows. We went over the court case on Friday with Doug Rohan and our guy Vance from Garnet Knoll. Then Sunday, we had Chris and James on and really got into the portal and what, position by position, what's going on there. Yesterday, we had Niall Lawrence Stample on, so it's been really great. We're going to be in Tallahassee for Friday's episode, so me and Jen will be coming live from Tallahassee. We're going to try to do something fun with that. So everybody just get over there and make sure you subscribe at the Renegade Report and be part of it. We're going to be at the tailgate, of course, helping Chris and James and CJ and those guys. So we hope to see everybody out there this weekend and some fun content coming from the spring game for sure.
When James mentions Urban Meyer, it reminds me of two things. I wish I had these two lists in front of me because the Ohio State spring game, and this is another thing Florida State can be anticipating and be looking forward to in joining the Big Ten, is that Ohio State was on Fox, its spring game, this past Saturday, and Michigan's on at noon this Saturday. That's what happens in that conference. The other thing is, and I tried to find the list, but they're not online. Urban Meyer was presenting two lists during the spring game. What separates good teams from championship teams? And he had a list of intangibles. He had a list of tangibles. And wasn't anything too surprising, but at the same time, I wish I could come up with that list. Wanted to throw that by you three. There was a lot of leadership involvement, championship, playing in the clutch and, leadership and toughness and those sorts of things on the intangibles list. And the tangible list was pretty tied to talent, of course, and offensive line being very important, and a quarterback who can make plays with his legs and various things. One thing that he had on the intangibles list was the coaching staff, not just the head coach, but the entire coaching staff. Chris, we'll start with you just in regards to your evaluation of this coaching staff compared to, previous staffs, maybe when Norvell got here, or some of Jimbo and Willie Taggart's staffs.
Well, I'll say what I like about Mike Norvell. I'm not going to say that he got it from anyone in particular because I don't know. But he's done this even back at Memphis. He has it's an expected response and a neglect to respond list. There's exceptions nowhere. The expectation is what it is. The standard's still the standard. So he has this list of how they respond to everything. That's his staff. That's the team. That's himself. It's even how Florida State, anyone around him, the team management group, the anyone that's involved with going and getting water for the team, it doesn't matter. He has expectations for everyone because the standard of doing what they're supposed to do is the standard. So getting to peak at that every once in a while, based off of a really good, we'll just say Michael offers the best. That's about all I can say. But my response to how that, it's been played out over the the tenure of 4 years going into the 5th with Mike Norvell. It's never changed. I mean, he even recruits the same way. Like, a lot of people are like, man, we could have got this 5-star. Mike says he don't meet the expectation of response. He doesn't respond to this test well, or he didn't respond to any of this well. So Mike's one of those guys that are testing you even when you do not realize you're being tested. It's all based on even the way he may approach you, the way he may speak, the way that he might have someone else do it. So it's how you respond to everything. If you're prepared for the test to be what he says, always be prepared so you don't have to be. A lot of people say it, but he says it based off it's always a test. I'm always testing everyone to get that 1% better out of you each day. And that's in more ways than just the practice field. That's your response as a young man. That's your response as a professional. That's your response as a human being in general. So I don't know that a lot of coaches don't do this. I just know what I've got to see. So I can't speak on what Urban Meyer did. I think it's a great, formality to have. I mean, but I don't know exactly what, Urban did. I know I've talked to a lot of Florida Gator players that were on that team, and they said that's just not the real story. And I'm not here to call either side a liar, but like the Percy Harvins and the Tim Tebow's and the Harrisons and all them saying, "Hey man, y'all want to know the true story?" And there's someone that's supposedly making that production. I'm more interested in that one than the watered down Netflix part. So I would call that one the lot lizards. So it is what it is. I have no love for Urban Meyer, the Florida Gators, or any of them. But if you're going to tell the story, at least tell the truth. So if it wasn't true, shame on them. Glad they made some money, whatever. They need it.
James, any thoughts about this coaching staff compared to previous coaching staffs here beyond the head coach?
I mean, obviously they're effective at getting things done, and they got a chance to build the culture that they wanted to. So I'm happy. It's a little bit different, but a different time. A little bit different to Jimbo's staff because we get a chance to kind of get to know more of the coaches. With Jimbo's staff, we didn't really get motivated. Like, we didn't get a lot. Like, so you didn't know much of the offensive staff. You knew Dawsey because getting former wide receiver at Florida State, but and then we kind of cycled through D coordinators. The only thing that was similar is a lot of people didn't like Charles Kelly, much like for whatever reason they didn't like Adam Fuller when he first started. But now people are feeling the full effects of the Fuller D, so we like that. But him allowing his coaches to speak a little bit more gives us we kind of, as a fan base, especially when you're winning as a fan base, you kind of grow attached to it. So it is. I mean, that's kind of what I like more. I think a lot of us like the idea of tag, and we wanted tag to be great. Maybe he needed more time. Maybe he did. He wasn't effective in the years that he was here. So now we're grateful that Mike is doing his thing and continuing to grow and progress. So all for it.
George, anything on the coaching staff that you like?
Yeah, man, I love all kind of things about the staff. I think the kind of difference maybe in towards the end of Bobby's and Jimbo Fisher's career, the stability, the continuity, James alluded to a little bit. I mean, you're year 5 and you've lost a couple guys. You lost Dilly and promoted within. You promoted Tokars up to quarterback coach. But yeah, the continuity's been amazing. And as far as the difference, this is the first coach we've had. I love Bobby. I love Jimbo. Not taking anything from him. He is really one of these guys who does truly more with less. Like with his offensive scheme, like that whole thing of scheming guys open and stuff. You saw with Florida State them switch to kind of that run and throw the ball down the field with Charlie Ward, and it kind of happened naturally, and they went with it. But I do think Mike Norvell is pretty unique to everything we've had. But if I was going to compare him to previous coaches, way more Bobby, in that he's out in front with his kind of faith and people breaking down into prayer groups and being super involved with purpose. And he's brought in a second chaplain with the team, stuff like that. But I couldn't be happier. It's hard to compare, but it's different. It's a little something different. It's kind of that, the way he recruits is different. Bobby was always top 5, top 10 recruiting classes. Same thing with Jimbo, and they got great guys, but he's just doing a little different. Maybe it's just a sign of the times with the portal and what's available, but definitely a little bit different. But yeah, I love it. There's no, I wouldn't trade Mike Norvell for any other coach in college football. I truly think he's the best evaluator in the game, and what him and Derek Ray do with roster management, also unmatched. So I love him, and give me that Fuller D as long as we can keep it.
All right, James, one more time on what's going on this Saturday and anything you want folks to know about at Den Media Group.
Tailgate, still got tickets available. Ribs, chicken, jambalaya, burgers, dogs, mac and cheese, collard greens, potato salad, baked beans, booze, all kinds of other different things that are there for it. Love to see as many FSU fans come out as possible, having a great time. Secondly, just come check us out at Den Media Group on the road to trying to grow the channel. I have it's such good benefits that I actually had somebody ask me if it was a scam. And I'm like, no scam, just trying to grow the channel and give people benefits as the channel grows. So we get to 6,000. We do a $500 giveaway live on Big Games BS, $100 giveaway to members, and then however many likes we have for that show at the time that we do giveaways, though. So we want everybody to come check it out. We want to grow. If we get to 10,000 before football season, we'll give away a pair of season tickets and a parking pass. So here to just want everybody to enjoy FSU or whatever their favorite school is, because some of the schools will adjust, but we want everybody to enjoy it in the best way possible.
We have the links to Den Media Group and the Renegade Report in the chat. We'll get Spear Addicts in there before we leave as well. We appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. It's every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. These three make it go. Big Game James Coleman, Den Media Group, Georgitis, the Renegade Report, Chris Frazier from Spear Addicts. Guys, you are the best. Thank you for making this roll, because otherwise we don't have a channel, we don't have a show without you. So thank you for that. Enjoy Saturday and enjoy the graduation.
Yes, sir. Go Noles, baby.